Alright, it's time to talk about Fedor. I was at the college for a couple days, so I'm a little late with this video. But here it goes. Of course, Fedor is now signed with Strikeforce instead of the UFC. And the basic speculation is, of course, that UFC would not go promote with M1 and Strikeforce would. And Strikeforce got a better deal than Affliction has due to the fact that they actually will not be, or at least the reports anyways, that they will not be paying Fedor's salary. It will come out of the M1 half of the profits. M1 will basically have to help pay for the event, but that's not really much. And then they will have to pay, or then they will be given half of the Showtime contract for the fights. And the other thing is that, in theory, this is the more murkier one, is whether they'll get half of the gate or not for the event. Now, people are saying that this is a lesser contract than what the UFC offered him, and in a money standpoint, it probably is, even though there's no. I don't know what the Showtime contract is, and also it depends on the gate, and of course what M1 feels that Fedor gets. Probably should be hefty percentage, otherwise, I'd be pissed, but, that's beside the point. As opposed to the rumored $5 million a fight, 6-fight deal from the UFC, which was bullshit. There's no way that was the offer. It would be $2 million tops, in my opinion. The 6 fights is probably a bit much. I would have thought it'd be more like 3 or 4 fights. It's a 3-fight deal, by the way, with Strikeforce, or 1 year, whatever comes first. Now let's look for a moment at what Fedor could fight in Strikeforce. Their 3 big names at heavyweight are Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum, and Brett Rogers. Alistair Overeem has some health problems at the moment, so that fight can't happen right now, but it's a hand injury. You would think he would be able to return long before Fedor's contract is up. You know what? Those are two. There's one great bout in that, and that's Alistair Overeem. I want to define that there's a good bout and then there's a great bout. A great bout is a fight that, hardcore fans really should feel gypped doesn't happen. Casual fans should too. I just don't know whether they will. And a good bout is a fight you want to see, but it's not quite on that level. And there is one great bout in Strikeforce. That's Alistair Overeem. That's a fight that we want to see because Alistair Overeem's been ripping it up as of late. He's looked pretty much unstoppable. I mean, outside of the Sergey Haratonov fight, he's been pretty much, taking out some reasonably good dudes like Crow Cop. Although Crow Cop is not the Crow Cop of old, he still, is, I would say, a top 20 heavyweight. Paul Buentello is another one that he's beaten. There's a couple others, but I'm not going to go into the history of Alistair Overeem because it's not about him. He's part of this, but it's not about him. You got that fight. That's a great fight. The Fabricio Verdum fight. That's a good fight. That's a fight that, I don't think anyone really has a problem seeing. I mean, are there going to be a lot of people that are saying, there are ways for Verdum to win the fight? There's always that possibility, but it's not a terribly likely outcome. It's a bit of a one-sided fight, but it's a fight you want to see because Verdum is probably still a top 10 fighter, even with the loss to Junior Dos Santos. I think that kind of knocks him down from maybe like top 5 down to low top 10, but I think he's still hanging in there. Because, for one thing, Dos Santos has gone out and looked pretty good since, which has probably helped, and is possibly going to fight Crow Cop now. You have the fight with Brett Rogers, which that's an okay fight. I mean, Brett Rogers is a one-trick pony as far as we've seen. I mean, he's a powerful puncher who doesn't have a ton of skill or a ton of speed. He has some skill and some speed, but not a ton. He's a big guy and he's a power puncher. But you know what? That's a decent fight. Another fight that could happen in Strikeforce is a fight with Bobby Lashley. Now, people want to bring up Brock Lesnar, but I gotta ask, this is a serious question. What does Lashley not bring to the table that Lesnar does? Lesnar, like it or not, the main reason people follow Lesnar is pro wrestling. The main reason people follow Bobby Lashley is pro wrestling. But they both have significant amateur backgrounds in wrestling. I think Bobby Lashley's actually done his MMA path a little more correctly by taking it slowly, whereas Lesnar's jumped into the deep end, and it's worked out for him. But they're both very big, very strong dudes. I will be the first to say that Lesnar versus Fedor, that's a bigger moneymaker fight. That's probably a more challenging fight for Fedor. But what is wrong with seeing Lashley versus Fedor? That's a good fight too. And of course, the Barnett fight can still happen now. It'll have to happen in Japan because, you know, as a number of people have stated, Barnett is done in the States. I mean, he's just not going to get sanctioned. It's not going to happen at Strikeforce. But Strikeforce has a non-exclusive contract, so Fedor can go to Dream or Sengoku and fight Barnett. And this also opens the door for a fight that I've wanted to see for some time, which is a fight with Sergey Haratonov. Sergey and Fedor have some history. They used to train together at the Russian top team. They were apparently also very good buddies at the Russian top team, and then Fedor left the Russian top team, which I'm going to get into later. And that led to a rift and some bad blood. Now, Haratonov, he's not the top-ranked fighter he used to be. He's still a solid fighter, and he doesn't really pay much attention, pose much of a threat to Fedor. At the same time, you look at the UFC, how many guys do you think legitimately have much of a shot at beating him? People bring up Brock Lesnar all the time. I'm going to say this right now. Very few people who like to hug to the Brock Lesnar can beat Fedor nuts have actually given me a reason why. And the best thing is that, you know, he nullified Frank Mir. So did Ian Freeman, who's a much smaller, much less skilled heavyweight, or well, actually probably a more skilled heavyweight than Brock, but a much, much smaller heavyweight than Brock. And he wrecked Frank Mir. Now, and you know what? People are going to say that's not the same Frank Mir. You know what? That's Frank Mir before the car crash, or before the motorcycle crash. That may be a better Frank Mir than the Frank Mir we have right now, as far as, you know, just general health and skill. It's not a better cardio Frank Mir, for the record. I mean, that is something that Frank has legitimately improved since the crash. But you look at that, that is an interesting fight. You know what? I can see ways that Brock Lesnar would win the fight. I just find it funny that those who like to bring it up can't seem to, you know, figure that out. But what other fights are there that are truly great? Randy Couture is a name people are going to bring up because Randy and Fedor, when they were going to fight, it was a huge topic of discussion. People really want to see that fight. I'm not a huge fan of that fight, but again, it's a good fight. It is possibly a great fight. So there you go. You got two. Does anyone really want to see Frank Mir versus Fedor? You know what? Where does Frank Mir fit in the picture at this point? His big credit is beating Nog, when Nog looked like shit. So, I mean, either you believe the reports that Nogueira was, like, really hurt and just hasn't, and could not deliver, or you believe the idea that Nogueira is done. Either way, that fight is not nearly as impressive. His other wins, of course, over Brock, and he was getting tooled in it. Before that, his big win was over Anthony Harndock, who, let's put it this way, anyone who's taken Harndock down has basically won the fight. Before that, he got completely roasted by Brandon Vera, looked very unimpressive against Dan Christensen, and lost to Marcio Cruz. That's not a fight I really want to see. Fedor versus Mir. I don't really want to see it. You know what? Fedor versus Verdum is a better BJJ fighter who doesn't break mentally fighting Fedor and has a better gas tank than Frank Mir. Nogueira, don't want to see that fight again. Shane Carwin, you know what? It's a good fight, but it's a very similar fight to Lashley or Lesnar. Cain Velasquez is a little different because he is a lot faster. And that's a good fight, but that's not a great fight. Gonzaga, you know what? That goes under the same ballpark as Frank Mir. Is he breaks mentally. He's been beaten by Verdum twice, who Fedor will probably fight in Strikeforce. And there you go. And then you got Czech Congo and Junior Dos Santos. I don't think if Junior Dos Santos beats Krokop, then we can legitimately talk about that being a great fight, a good fight to a great fight. But the Czech Congo fight, you know what? Anyone who's tried to take Czech Congo down has basically done it, except for Mustafa Al Turk. And once it's there, Congo's not really had anything. So there you go again. Is that really that interesting of a fight? So you tell me. I mean, there's no question the UFC heavyweight division is more deep than the rest of the world, but when you look at top level content that Fedor will be fighting, is it really that much more impressive? Alright, I'm at 9.5 minutes. I'm going to stop the video and talk a little bit more about this in a moment.